Hi, I'm Karen Terry Brown. Welcome to another episode of Prevailing Through Pain. Our guest today is Eulanie Lashley. She's the president and CEO of a hospital here in Dallas-Fort Worth area. Welcome, Eulanie.
Thank you.
How are you?
I am well. Thank you for having me.
First of all, thank you so much for giving up your time. I know you're a very busy lady to be on the show. So I'm going to just dive right in. I'd like to let our audience know a little bit about your background, how you got to be the phenomenal woman that you are today. So many times people see us where we are, but they don't know how we got to where we are. So can you just tell us your humble beginnings? Can we start there?
Absolutely. So thanks again for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about my story. So I was born on the Caribbean island of St. Vincent. I have a relatively large family. I have 2 parents and 6 siblings, 5 of which are older than me. And so I like to say that I have a total of 7 parents in my life. But we were a relatively close-knit family when I was coming up. My parents had relatively little education at the time. My dad was one of 15 or 16, and so he was taken out of school by his parents at a relatively young age and sent to learn a trade, because the most important thing for them at that time was to have the extra hands to be able to support the family. And so he never completed elementary school. My mom, on the other hand, also came from a large family, another 14 or 15 siblings. And while she finished elementary school at the time I was growing up, she hadn't finished high school. So I had 2 parents who had relatively little education, little formal education, raising a family of 7 in those situations. And so you can imagine the amount of opportunity, the types of opportunity were limited.
Question, were large families common where you grew up?
You know, I always felt like we were a little bit bigger than
everybody else.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, even now I tell people, my parents, they had like candlelight and soft music, and then there were like 7 of us.
Okay.
So even amongst my friend group, I still felt like we were relatively big. 7 kids is a lot of kids.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, not quite common. But despite the fact that they didn't have much by way of education or opportunity, my dad really was a skilled tradesman. And my mom, this woman, she could make a meal fit for a queen out of like water and sugar. And so what we weren't able to get materially from my parents, a lot of it came through in work ethic, in faith, in the way that we took care of each other as a family, and really shifting the things that we valued coming up when we were younger. My dad was a really big believer in education, and I think a part of that is because he didn't have the things, and not knowing where yours will come from. I know what it is to walk to school after a night of having nothing to eat and just be normal, right? You conceal, you don't let it show, because you don't want to have to deal with the shame. You don't want to have to deal with anything. You don't want to embarrass your parents, right?
So about what age were you that you can recall?
This is my entire childhood.
You know, it's where you said you remember that it been something different. Mm-hmm. I have a cousin that says, you know, I didn't know we were poor until someone said, you all are poor, because that's something that within your household that's the household you know. You don't really think it's any different until someone says something's different.
I think we knew.
You know, going to school.
I think we knew that there was not enough. I think that we knew, but like I said, our parents, we were clear that they loved us, right? We were clear that they would give give literal body parts to be able to take care of us. And because of that, I think it just built kind of like a bond and an appreciation for our parents that probably would not have been the same without that experience.
What's one of the happiest times that you can remember as a child?
I think it was always Christmas for us, right? Even if you talk to my siblings, I'm sure some of them will have different memories. But for me, I'm just like, it was always Christmas, because it felt like no matter how bad things were during the year or no matter how many times you were eating like sugar and water with crackers, and that was like your meal. No matter how bad it got, at Christmas, like my parents just always figured out how to have something a little bit extra on the table. You know, like my dad is a great cook, my mother's a good cook. And so we'd wake up Christmas morning and they'd be in the kitchen together, you know, like figuring out what we were going to eat and planning a meal. So that was a thing that I remember most. All the things that you could never have or you couldn't dream of having during the year, it always showed up somehow during the Christmas season. I still don't know how they did it completely, you know. I still don't know what they had to go through to be able to do those things, but they always tried to take those moments and make them special. I'll tell you, even I remember once for my birthday, you don't have much. We had a couple of chickens in the backyard that my parents would raise. And I know, just for all the vegans, just cover your ears.
It's about to get rough.
But one of the things my mom did is that one of the chickens became dinner. And her special thing was like, you get to pick what part of the chicken you wanted. And that was all that she could give. You weren't getting a present in terms like a new Barbie or something, but you were going to have the opportunity to have this special meal. So they did the best that they could with what.
What's your favorite? What was your favorite part?
I just always asked for the drumstick because I didn't know better at that time. But it was a pretty big deal for us.
Wow. So I'm going to flip it. What's a dark time that you can recall? And it could be at any age.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's the teenage years were hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were just difficult because I think at that time, even some of my classmates would know that things are different. Like when you're not switching out like your uniform shirt as often as other people were, or you weren't switching out your shoes and your shoes were kind of busted, like people knew. And sometimes kids can be unaware of how their words impact other people. And so having to navigate that, navigating the not having enough and people being aware of it and still being able to hold your head up and do what you need to do to make it through, I think those are really hard. There are also times that my parents, when we moved, we became Seventh-day Adventists when I was about 6 years old. And so my parents made the commitment that they were going to have their kids educated in Christian schools, which was incredible to me because how are we going to pay for it?
Right.
But like I told you, just incredible faith, right? Their whole journey was God will provide somehow. And so I remember sometimes we got tuition paid. Sometimes it was a little bit more difficult. And I remember I was like 13 years old, 14 at the time, because I was getting ready for my final year's big exams in the Caribbean. We used to call them CXCs at the time. I was getting ready for that. And
You said
CXCs.
Okay.
And I was getting ready for those exams and my bill hadn't been paid in a really long time. And the school had decided like, hey, we can't just have you and your brother coming to school. Like there has to be some movement.
Mm-hmm.
And they sent us home.
And you didn't get to take your exam?
I was out of school for about 2 months. And by the time I got back, like it was catch up because you missed assignments now that you were supposed to have going into exams. And I think things like that leave a lasting little bit of a memory, you know. Ultimately, I think a good Samaritan stepped in and took care of a portion of our bill and we were able to go back. But those are things that just linger, you know. And to be honest, like thinking about it does cause some pain. But one of the things I've appreciated about that particular journey is that it really has influenced and deeply shaped the way that I lead and the way that I show up in the world and really my purpose when it comes to leadership. When you grow up in a space where you don't have enough and you're trying to keep it from everybody else, like just how bad the situation is, there's a sort of invisibility cloak that you build and you put yourself in, right? You become small, you become invisible, you want to get through that moment and move on to the next. And so when I think about my legacy as a leader and what I get to do every day, yes, a part of it is the clinical piece, working with the clinicians to make sure that people get quality healthcare and deliver on the promises that we've made. But also a piece of it is just making sure that the team members that I get to work with, the people that I get to support every day, feel seen.
Yeah.
And they feel valued.
And I can appreciate that, because I remember one time as a leader, one of my employees said, "Are you fake?" And I said, "Am I fake?" He said, "You come in here every morning or afternoon." He said, "Now watch you go to each employee and say, 'Good morning, Mr. So-and-so. Good morning, Miss So-and-so. How are you?'" And I said, "Well, what do you feel is fake about that? What do you really care how they are?" And I said, "That lets me know how they are." I said, "Because if I come in and I say, 'Good morning, Eulanie, how are you?' And you say, 'I'm fine.' And then I come in one morning and you say, 'I'm fine.' Well, I know you aren't fine, because your typical MO is, 'I'm fine.'" And it gives me the opportunity to say, "Hey, what's going on? How, if it's something that is going on within the organization that I can help you with, or it may even be something personal, And so I think, like you said, our beginnings help shape us. And if we have a faith base, and we're in tune to what our calling and our purpose is, it really helps us to be able to help someone else become a better person.
Absolutely.
And I'm always saying, when someone says, "Well, how can I pay you back?" No, you pay it forward. You help someone else when you get on your feet.
Exactly.
So thanks for sharing.
Absolutely.
So those teenage years were a little rough.
They were.
You got through the teenage years, and what's next?
I actually did some advanced studies there in the Caribbean. So I took about 2 years and I went to our local college and got some advanced skills. And once I got done with that, I actually became a teacher for 2 years, which is interesting because I graduated high school at 16, right? So you can imagine me at 18 standing in front of a class of high school.
Wow.
It's a very different, humbling in a very different way. But again, like I loved to learn. I loved to experience new things. And I knew from my own personal experience that education really was a gateway. So if there was something that I knew that could help you and help you advance and help you be better, I was happy to share it. So teaching felt like a natural progression for me, given the opportunity to just be able to share knowledge and help these kids, some of whom were in the same situation that I was in, some who needed people that they could talk to and trust in and rely on. And I really enjoyed the time. There were a lot of really great lessons that I learned from teaching. I learned a lot about patience. I learned a lot about myself. I learned about different ways that you communicate with different people. And even though at the time, I didn't know what the benefit was fully, a lot of those same lessons that I learned in a classroom from my most difficult students are lessons that have been integral to what I do every day and what I've been able to do over the course of the last 18 years of my career. So I became a teacher.
That's interesting. At one point in my life, I was a substitute teacher.
Yeah.
And I never had children. And so if she heard me say that, she said, "What do you mean?" I have an inherited daughter.
Yeah.
That's from a divorce, but Lord have mercy. I tried elementary and I said, "Oh my God, I'm gonna hurt somebody's child."
Yeah.
Then I did middle school and I was like, "Oh, these kids are feeling themselves." Then I tried high school, and high school, I think, is where I felt I needed to be the most, because I thought they're the ones that's getting ready to get out there into the real world.
Yeah.
And like you said, some of those lessons, but I would go home at night and say, "Lord, are you sure I need to be here?" But, some of the things that I would see them do, I'd always see the class clown, because there's always somebody that gets initiated. And I'd look, and then I'd see they were 11th grade or 12th grade, and I'd call them up to, to my desk. And then I started asking them questions that made them think about what's next. And, I remember this one little guy, I thought, they're going to kick me out of here from the conversation I had with him. And I did that for about a year, I guess. And so I got called to the office one day, and I thought, what are these kids finally throwing up? And they here. And they said, there's a letter for you. And I was like, oh. And I said, well, who was it from? They said, a young man. So I'm thinking, oh, God. I opened it real slow because I'm thinking, there's going to be a spider right in here. But he told me that this was his last year. I don't know if you remember me or not, he said, but this is my last year. And I often think about the things that you said, and you asked me what I was going to do when I finished school. And you said if I didn't change, I'd be in jail in another year or dead if I didn't do things different. So he gave me his phone number and said, I want you to call me in a year from now because I'm not going to be in jail and I'm not going to be dead. And I'm going to let you know I heard everything you said. And I called him probably for about 5 years after that. And then life happened. So I just thank God for that experience in my life. And like you said, it was probably you being close to their age. Some of them probably felt, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. And then others you probably that never even told you, you probably gave them hope.
Yeah.
That if she could be here today, this can be me when I finish school.
I would hope so, because I do think teachers are such an important part of the fabric of our society, right? If it weren't for teachers who were paying attention to me or teachers who were quietly affirming me through the years, that was some of the most difficult for me. Like, I don't know how my story would have been different if it wasn't for the teacher who noticed that, man, she's wearing the same shirt every day. And like, these kids are not being as kind as they could be to her. And she probably needs another one. And maybe she can't afford another one. Who quietly took her own money and bought another one and then pulled me away and gave it to me silently. Like, if it weren't for people taking those extra steps, if it weren't for teachers like that, like my experience could have been a lot different than it was. So I really saw it at the time as an opportunity to be able to make the same impact on somebody else, that same impact that I experienced, to be able to pass it on to somebody else. Like you said, it's not so much about paying people back, but the payback is in the pay forward, right?
Hold that thought. We're going to take a break for our sponsor. We'll be right back.
Do you have a powerful story of perseverance? Have you triumphed over pain and want to share your story with the world? We're looking for inspiring guests to join us on the Prevailing Through Pain podcast. Head over to karencherry.me/guest. Fill out the form and let us know your story. Your voice could be the one to inspire others. Your experience can be the one to lift up someone else. Go to karencherry.me/guest.
We're back. So this is, it amazes me when I talk to people and realize that, we have people in the world in general, strangers, we have more in common than we think. We'll look at someone and feel like, yeah, they wouldn't. And you get to talk to people. It's amazing how much people have in common that they just don't realize. And that's why I say I encourage you to reach out when you pass someone in the hall at work or at school, and just say hi.
Yeah.
Airport, wherever. So the 2 years with the school,
Right.
What happened? What was next after that?
So during those 2 years, like I said, like my family, pretty strong faith coming up, right? And the church that we were attending, we had been going to that church for years. Like, I know I told you, like, I was born in St. Vincent. We lived there for the first 9 years of my life, and then we moved from St. Vincent to Antigua. And so all of my high school, my education, like my formative years were in Antigua. So the church that we were attending in Antigua, I had a lady who was a church member who came up to me about a year into my teaching, and she said, "What are you doing with your life?" I was like, "What do you mean? What am I doing with it?" Like, do you not see me educating young minds? Are you missing that? And I said, "Well, I'm teaching at the school." And she was like, "Well, how long are you going to do that?" I was like, "Oh, what do you mean, how long am I going to do that?" She said, "Well, a lot of your classmates are gone and they're away and they're studying. Like, is that what you want to do for the rest of your life?" And I was like, "Not necessarily, but it's what, I don't have the option of going away. Like, we don't have the," and like, you know that we don't have the money for me to go away to school. Like, how am I gonna fund it? And she said to me, she was like, "You're really smart and you're really gifted." And she said, I would love for you to be able to go away and just go back to school and just become something more than you are." And I remember thinking, "Lady, it is the Sabbath of the Lord. I am here in church. Like, can I just have a moment?" I feel bad enough already. Like, there's a part of me that aches watching my friends come and go from university. and people are in law school and business school and doing all of the things, there's a part of me that aches that that's not my journey, but I can't afford it. And so we have this conversation after church, and she said, well, why don't you just try to go? And I'm just like, I would like to go. I just don't think it's in the cards. And besides, I'm happy teaching. And she said, well, that's not enough. And I said, well, feels like it's enough for me. And she was pretty insistent. And she said, there's a scholarship competition that I know that's coming up that I think you should participate in. I was like, well, first of all, I haven't heard about this scholarship competition, which is odd. And second of all, if the competition involves me taking a math test, we might have some problems because on a scale of 1 to love, I have no love for math. And so she explained to me, she was like, no, it was going to be amongst all the Adventist kids. And you take these tests, you just have to pay the fee to get signed up. And I think you should do it. And I said, okay, I'll think about it. She was like, well, you probably should think about it and be ready by tomorrow because I already paid the fee. And so you're you're registered to be a part of the program. So even though I had my strong objections, we were taught to be very respectful children, can't embarrass your parents no matter how old you are, right? And so I said, okay, I'll take the tests. I'm not going to pass because, again, there is math involved, but I'll take it. And so what they did was they had this competition. Everybody took the same exams, and they picked the girl with the highest score and the boy with the highest score amongst all of the students. And those two students would go head to head in an oratorical competition, and you had to know Bible verses, and you had to write a whole oratory. And believe it or not, I was the girl who came out with the highest scores from all the girls who took it. And as a part of that process, when we went one-on-one, I had up, I won. Mm-hmm. And the prize was a full tuition scholarship. Wow. To Atlantic Union College a full scholarship to Atlantic Union College in South Lancaster, Massachusetts. It's one of the Adventist schools. So I was flying pretty high. My parents were incredibly proud, right? And it was a big deal. It was the first time anything like that had happened on the island within my church tradition. So everybody was pretty excited. I went ahead and put in my notice for my job. Mm-hmm. And I said, in the fall, I'm going to be going to Massachusetts to study. And I was making every preparation to go. And then maybe about a month before it was time for me to leave, I learned that there was a change in the administration at the school. And the new administration would not honor my scholarship. So it was a little bit of a death blow, right? Because here you are thinking well, God's opened this window for me, right? That was impossible. And this is incredible because these things, they don't happen, right? They don't happen, much less happen to people like me. And everybody knew that I was supposed to be leaving and I have no job and all the things. And now I can't go. So it really was a bit of a roller coaster for me, for my parents, just for everybody involved, because what was I going to do now? I ended up going back for my second year of teaching. The principal at the time gave me my job back, and I just kind of put it out of my mind. And I was just like, well, I guess it wasn't meant to be. I'm just gonna keep doing what I do. About a year later, I got a call from the people who were responsible for the scholarship, and they had negotiated with the school to the point where, yes, they weren't going to give me a full scholarship anymore, but it was going to be half.
Okay.
Right? So it's $8,000. The tuition was $16,300. And the country I was living in, you got to understand, we don't use U.S. money. We use Eastern Caribbean currency, mm-hmm. and the exchange rate is 2.7 to 1. $1 US is $2.70. So $16,000 multiplied by 3, basically, it's a lot of money.
Right.
When I thought I was getting it all easy, no problem. Now you're only going to give me half? What am I going to do to get the other half? Do you know how scholarships work? You fundamentally get it because you don't have the money to be able to pay for it, right? And I was really disturbed, right? Because it felt on the one hand like I was being robbed. But again, my parents, in their wisdom, their whole point was, listen, you have nothing now. You have half. take the half that you have, go, and God will make a way. Like, you'll figure it out, right? Just do your best. Find a job where if you can, God will figure it out. And I remember thinking, that is very easy for you to say, because you are not the one who's going, and you won't have to deal with it. But, sure enough, you kind of learn that there's just some pivot points where you either trust or you don't, right? And so they kind of took all of the money that they could borrow from friends and enemies, and they bought me a ticket. I remember racing to go buy the ticket on a Sabbath afternoon before the travel agency closed. Well, that was like back in the day, before the travel agency closed, to get the ticket to be able to leave the following day. That's how tight it was. And it was incredible because I could tell that my parents really, really wanted this for me. And they had, where I didn't have faith, they had enough to cover for it. And so they gave me, I got the ticket, and the next day they gave me the last $400 that they had. And they put me on a plane and said, go to school. So I got to Massachusetts on August 15 of 2004. I came to study. And even that was a whirlwind, because you think, well, they know I'm coming. They know the situation. Surely there shall be some grace and mercy. But it was a challenge getting registered that first. Again, it came down to the wire where I'm trying to get registered. The folks in the financial aid office are basically like, you knew you didn't have any money. Like, why'd you come here? Right? And I saw the president of the university in the hallway, because now he knows me. He knows who I am. We've met. He's like, oh, you're registered? Everything's good? I'm like, no, I actually am not registered. I only have half the tuition. I can't pay for the rest. And he was like, what do you mean you're not registered? And I'm like, I don't have all of it. And so it was at his direction. He kind of walked me back to the office, and he was like, we can't let her go home. Like, let's figure it out. And so they registered me. I was able to get a job, and I kind of worked as many hours as I could. Being an international student, I was 20 hours a week, worked as much as I could, as hard as I could, to be able to offset some of the tuition. So coming off of my first year, I still had a pretty big balance. But going into the summer, I was able to become an RA in the dorm, which I was getting paid a little bit more now, right? And the summer that I was there, they were having a prayer conference that summer. And I was working at the front desk, so I'm checking everybody and making sure they have their rooms. And these two little old ladies from Trinidad came in. And they're from Trinidad. I am from Antigua, Caribbean people, right? It's like, oh, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Antigua. Oh, you're from Trinidad. We talk a little bit. I get them settled, and they go away. And I would see them on campus, and I'd wave, and just, it's normal. One night I was in my room, and I got a call. I was like, and they said, hey, these two ladies, they're asking for you. I was like, oh, they probably need to make a complaint, because I'm the RA on duty that weekend. And so I go downstairs to meet them, and I go to their room, and they invite me in. I go in, and they say, sit down. So I sit down, and they start asking me all these questions, like, so tell us a little bit about where you're from. Like, how do you get here? Like, how's school going? What are your grades like? I'm like, these are my people. They're going to, Caribbean people, they will ask you, they will ask all of the questions, and they're asking me all these questions. And so I'm answering, we're having a conversation, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, this is a lot of information you're asking me. Anyway, fast forward, we talk for a while, and they say to me, well, how are you paying your bill? And I was like, funny story. I'm working as much as I can, but it's not enough. And they were like, oh, so you have a balance? And I was like, yeah, I have a balance, and I don't know how I'm going to get started for my second year. And they said to me, okay, and they kind of look at each other. I'm like, what is happening? And they said to me, listen, we called you here because we've been praying. We've been praying for a student. We've been praying for a student to bless her. And God has shown us that student is you. And so what we're going to do is we're going to pay off your balance, and we're going to continue to send you money on a payment plan to take care of your tuition. And in the moment, I was like, I'm sorry, you're going to do what? you don't know me. I don't know you. Like, we're not family. We're not related. How are you going? Like, you know how much tuition is? Like, are you sure? And they said, no, we'll take care of it. And so there's a part of me that's like relieved and stunned and excited and all of the things. And being able to call my parents and tell them that, but there's a part of me too that's like, this can't be real, right? People like this, they don't exist. Like, people don't do this for strangers. But sure enough, they were true to their word. And every month, like, I would get a payment on my account to be able to.
So this is choking me up because I know it's real. Yeah.
To be able to take care of my bill. And so that got me through year 1 and year 2. In year 2, I had to make a transition from Atlantic Union College over to Andrews University. Because the faculty was changing, and at the time, like, Andrews, the push from people within my circle was like, hey, it's a good time for you to make a transition to Andrews. Now, Andrews was significantly more expensive than AUC.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can't afford AUC, how am I going to afford Andrews? You're like, wow, how is it? What? And I feel like I just got settled. Like, things just finally are working. Like, do I really have to make the transition? I did have to make the transition. And so again, I'm working in the dorm for the summer, and they're having a teacher's conference. And my roommate's mom, she comes in, and I'm checking her in the office, giving her her room, and we're just catching up. She's like, oh, how was your year? And I'm telling her all the things. And I told her, I was like, yeah, you know, the transitions in the school business, and I have to leave. I go to Andrews. She's like, oh, you're not going to be Peter Gay's roommate anymore? I'm like, no, because, you know, she'll stay and I'll go to Andrews. And she was like, oh, so when are you leaving? I was like, funny story. I actually don't know how this is all going to work because I can't afford the tuition. And she said, we're just having a casual conversation. She was like, oh, well, how much is it? And I told her. And she said, well, why don't you just get a student loan? Because that's what my daughter does. Just get a student loan. And I was like, I'm international. International students don't get student loans. Like, in order for us to get loans, we have to have an American citizen sign as a guarantor to say, if I don't pay it, they will pay it, right? And we're talking, and she's like, so what are you going to do? I was like, I don't know, just kind of praying and seeing what happens, right? Just preparing, and we're filling out paperwork, and she looks up and she says to me, but Eulanie, I'm an American. I said, God bless you and God bless America. Right? And I said, oh, yeah, okay, good, nice.
Yeah.
And she says, I'll sign for you. I'm like, what do you know what you know what a guarantor is, right? Like, if I don't pay back these 20, 30, how many ever thousands of dollars, like, you'll be responsible for it. Like, are you sure you have your own kids that you have to put through college? And she said, yeah, you're going to pay it back, right? And I said, absolutely. And she said, I'll do it for you. Bring the papers. And within that week, I went from not knowing how that was going to work to now being enrolled at Andrews University and moving from Massachusetts to Michigan. And it was so funny to me that after a couple of months of being at Andrews and being in school and working there and just trying to, it's the same thing. You work as much as you can to pay as much as you can. You get all the scholarships that you qualify for, and you see what's left. I got a call from the school I was at, AUC, where I started. And they said, hey, we were going through our records and we have a check for you. I'm like, you have a check for me? They were like, yeah, we realized that you didn't get like your last, there was like a refund on your account. I said, you have a check for me? And in my head, I was like, God, you have a sense of humor. How is it that this place that when I first walked in, I was being told I couldn't make a way and I would have to leave and like I couldn't get registered for classes. Mm-hmm. How is it that 2 years later, they're calling me and telling me we actually owe you money? Now, if that isn't the hand of God, like I don't know what is, right? So now I'm at Andrews, more expensive, great school, having a great experience. I learn about this company called Adventist Health Systems. It's now Advent Health. And it's a faith-based hospital. And the mission of this company is extending the healing ministry of Christ. Is there anything better that you can do with your life than being the hands and feet of Jesus? So I fall in love with this mission, learn a lot more about the company. I'm like, oh, it's in healthcare. I never thought about healthcare. I wanted to be a lawyer at one point. I wanted to be a neurosurgeon at one point, but I never really thought about making a life in healthcare in this way. So I go through the process and I apply for an internship because I'm like, I can't think of a better way to spend my time and my life other than just doing what Jesus did, taking care of people's needs, right? And I apply for the internship. I think I do a great interview and I don't get the internship, right? What am I gonna do? Because now I'm my junior year, senior year is coming. After senior year, I'm gonna have to go home, right? It was about 2 weeks or so before the interns were supposed to go to their destination. I get a call from a random number and I pick up. This is back in the day when you would answer calls and they were random. And the lady's like, hi. She says her name. I am from the accounting department at Florida Hospital. It's Florida Hospital Orlando at the time, now Advent Health Orlando. And she said, you applied for the internship and I know you didn't get it, but we have a student who just dropped out. I'm like, how do you drop out of an internship with Advent Health? Like, why would you do that? Anyway, it doesn't matter. She says, your name's the next on the list. Are you interested? And I'm like, I'm absolutely interested. Do you need me to start like tomorrow? Because I can figure that out. And she says, well, do you have a car? Like, what do you? I said, no, I don't have a car, but I will walk if I need to. I will get there however I need to get. She was like, okay, if you think you can make it work without a car, the internship is yours. Great. Paid internship, right? So now for my second year, I can make money, right, during the summer, decent money to be able to pay and offset my classes in a meaningful way for the fall. I am flying high. Like, this is incredible. And then I remember after talking to the International Student Services Office that I'm an international student. And international students can't work more than 20 hours a week unless you're registered for a class. Now, the trick is, in order to register for the class, you have to pay for it up front. So where I thought I could work and make the money during the summer to pay for the class and afterwards, now I have to pay for the class up front. Do I have the money to pay for the class up front? I do not.
Oh, no.
And so again, it's like another roller coaster, right? Trying to figure out, like, Lord, what is it? Like, what are you trying to teach me? Like, what are you doing to me? So I go to my advisor's office because by this time she's very excited. She's known now. And I go to my advisor's office and I'm worn, right? So now I'm crying, I'm hysterical, I'm a mess. She's like, what's going on? And I tell her, I can't take the class. I'm gonna have to turn down the internship because I can't pay for the class to be able to do the internship. And she's like, what do you say? That makes no sense. Like, that makes no sense. So she picks up the phone and calls the dean of students. And in the student services office, she called the dean and she's like, there's a student, she's been working hard. She has good grades. Like, she's a great student. This is a huge opportunity for her. Are you saying that we really can't do anything? He's like, I love you, but I love the U.S. government even more. We're not going to risk the whole program getting shut down so I can make an exception or whatever. So she says, okay, she understands. And she gets off the phone. She looks across the table at me and she says, let's go. I'm like, wait, where are we going? Because I'm not prepared. She grabs her purse and now she bolts out of her office. And I'm like walking behind her, trying to figure out where we're going. Marches across the courtyard, goes into the administration building. And I'm like, I am not sure what's happening. She goes downstairs to where we typically do all of our registration. And I'm standing behind her in the line and she waits her turn. And then she gets up to the counter and I'm still trying to figure out exactly what's happening. And she says to the girl at the counter, I need to register her for a class. I'm like, is her me? Am I her? And she looks around and she says, what's the name of the class? What's the class number? And I give it to her. And she tells the girl, And the girl says to her, "It's 3 credits." "Yes, 3 credits." And she says, "That'll be $2,375.57. And she reaches into her purse, pulls out her wallet, and hands the girl her credit card and pays for my class. And then she says to me, "You go to that internship, you do the best job that you can. And we'll talk about how you pay me back after graduation." And now I'm really a mess. Because this is like money from your account that you're paying for me without thinking about it. So she pays for my class. I go to the internship. I do walk to work. I walk.
How far?
I promise you at this point, I was like, did I really walk that far? I feel like it was like a mile or 2 in the morning. But when the people in the office find out that I'm walking, they're like, "We're not having you do that. Like, we'll take you. Tell us when you need to do groceries. Like, we'll take care of you." And they took care of me the whole summer. That summer, it went really well. The internship was great. I learned a lot. I went back to school. And in February of 2008, I get a call from a gentleman named Richard Brannon. "Eulanie, this is Richard Brannon from financial planning at Abbott Health Orlando, Florida Hospital Orlando." And we talked for a little while, and then he says, I have a job opening, and I really would like you to come down and interview." And so I'm like, yes, right? Because this is what I've been, absolutely. And I get off the phone, and I sit there thinking to myself, okay, but how is it I get called and talked to about a job that I never
Have you applied for?
Mm-hmm. How is that?
As my grandmother would say, "But God."
How is that? So as I clearly I was successful, right? I went to the interview and got the job and started as a financial analyst in the basement of the Medical Plaza building at Florida Hospital Orlando in September of 2008. And one of the things that I found out later in my journey there, once I became a manager, was that every summer, at the end of the summer, they would get a huge list of the students who went through the internship. And it had like your major and your grade and all that, and all of the feedback from the people that you worked with over the summer. And then you go through the list and you identify the students who you wanted to talk to. And that's how he got my name. That's why he made that call. And that's how I ended up there. Mm-hmm. So I've been with now Advent Health for the last 18 years. And the same way that I have seen God show up time after time after time, just putting his finger in the river every once in a while and carving out a path where there was no path, is the same way that I've seen him show up in my leadership and in my professional journey. There have been some incredible blessings that I've been able to experience, in as much as my beginnings were humble and they were hard, and a lot of it was they were trying. There were difficult times to live through. They're painful memories to remember. I think all of those things have been, for me, one of the biggest blessings, and has really, really influenced the way that I want to show up in the world. And it's influenced the way that I want to lead. Like I said before, one of the things that I think is a very clear purpose for me is that people need to know that I can see them. People need to understand that you're more than what you do. You're more than your circumstance, right? It doesn't matter where you start. It doesn't matter what things look like in the beginning. With a little bit of elbow grease, the right opportunities, and just an ability to say yes to things where sometimes you feel like saying no, it is incredible where you can end up. Because I could never have told little Eulanie. If I had told her this story, like, girl, you're gonna leave the island one day and you're gonna go to school, you're gonna have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, and you're gonna become the president of a hospital in one of the largest hospital systems in the country. She would never She would never be able to wrap her mind around it. And there are days when I sit in my office, behind my desk, and I still cannot believe that I get to be where I am and do the work that I get to do every single day. Yeah, it's hard work. Yes, it has been hard work the whole journey. But beyond that, Karen, I'll tell you, it is nothing but the hand of God.
Yeah.
It is nothing but the hand of God.
Well, what a beautiful journey. The little girl that was once trying to figure out if she was going to have a meal that day, to, like you said, being the president and CEO of a major organization, major hospital. And so I just thank you so much for sharing that story, because I know it touched me. And I'm much older than you are in life and where I am in life. So one or more of our viewers is going to be totally blessed by your story and encouraged to keep going. So thank you so much for being a part of the podcast journey today.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, I'm Karen Cherry Brown, and if you like this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.